Alright, so here's a video showing this week's weekly Nightfall. It's the Insight Terminus. I'm doing a solo flawless master run. The modifiers this week are Famine, and Ashes to Ashes is the daily modifier, which is it does become an issue, especially in the boss fight and with all the Cabal grenades and the backpack Cabals. They all shoot that solar blast at you. So it might be, I went with concussive dampener and void resistance on my chest piece just because it's an acute void burn. The boss does void damage, so I just figured I'd try to deal with it like that. But I'll be honest, the solar grenades and damage from the Cabals ended up killing me in the boss fight a couple times. So anyway, I'm back on Night Stalker with Gyrfalcons, and I wanted to do a video using collective obligation because I actually in between Christmas and New Year's I was pretty much just doing what I wanted in the game, farming up certain weapons and armor pieces that I didn't yet have, leveling my weapons, crafting, all that. And I had one really good week in between Christmas and New Year's where my RNG was just on point. I got collective obligation, I got all my Season of the Seraph weapons, all the patterns, everything was crafted. And I haven't got a chance to really use collective obligation much, outside of this Nightfall in particular. And I figured because we've got barrier pulses in the seasonal artifact, and this is the first Nightfall in the rotation, so it's the first on the list for Grandmasters as well. I wanted to use this in this Nightfall. And I already did this on Grandmaster, just in a team on LFG. I wanted to test it out. Just went straight into it on reset day with collective obligation and commemoration. I did some retrofit escapade, and I kind of got used to the mechanics of the weapon, because it can be pretty confusing. So a lot of people probably don't have this weapon because you get it from Val the Disciple. It's just pure RNG. Personally, I have just over 30 clears on Val, and 90% of that is just Rhulk checkpoints. But either way, if you get a clear, then you have a chance to get the exotic. And if you want to try and farm for it, you can do Val the Disciple. You can do a Rhulk checkpoint one time on each character per week for a chance to get the exotic. For most people, that's pretty good. If you're doing other stuff in the game, that's a decent farm. You can quote unquote farm Val the Disciple when it's the weekly raid as well. So you can literally pick any character you want, stay on that character, and farm the same checkpoint over and over and over again. You can just farm Rhulk like the whole week on one character, and every single time you do it, you'll have a chance to get the exotic. So if you really want to go hardcore and farm for it, that's how you do it. But you could do it passively if you just try and do a Rhulk checkpoint once to 3 times per week. It's not a bad idea to do anyways, once per week, because if you're still working on getting your red border weapons and crafting all the raid weapons from Val, which I highly recommend, then as long as you got 20 spoils, you can go to the spoils table at the end of the Rhulk encounter and get your weekly red border. So that's basically all I've done with Val. Is I've done the full raid a few times, and outside of that, just doing it weekly to get my red borders, and then finally after 30 clears, I got collective obligation. So I realize it's a pretty rare weapon to probably most people viewing this. But at least this kind of gives you a taste of what it does. So it's obviously a void energy weapon. It's pulse, so primary ammo. I'm not too sure on the archetype, but what the traits that it has is it leeches void debuffs off of targets, and then you can activate. See how right now it says void leech charged? That's because I am using Gyrfalcons, so every time I come out of invisibility, my void weapons do volatile damage. Which means that if I shoot a target and make them volatile with collective obligation, it'll add the volatile charge onto, you know, as a void leech onto the weapon. So right now you see how it has 3 circles in the crosshair. There's one big one, and then there's 3. So the one big one just means that you have a void leech charged. That can mean that you either volatile, weaken, or suppressed. So now I've got 2. So the first one is volatile. So if you shoot a volatile target, you'll get that first circle lit up. If you weaken a target, you'll get the second circle lit up. If you suppress a target, it's the third circle. So it took me a while to even figure out which one was which, or if there was any order, and there definitely is. So pretty much all the time I've got the first circle lit up because I'm using Gyrfalcon's hauberk, and everything I shoot is volatile basically. And then so with my subclass, I paired it with a suppressor grenade, and I wasn't even using a suppressor grenade for the purpose of this weapon specifically. I just like using suppressor grenades, and I like having triple 100 stats, so like my resilience, my mobility, and my discipline are all tier 10, and the only way I can do that with my current armor is by using suppressor grenades with Echo of Domineering for that plus 10 discipline. And sometimes in certain Nightfalls and dungeons, you know, you're just way better off just going for a tier 7 or a tier 8 on your discipline and having a weakening vortex grenade, for example, or even a magnetic grenade if it's a floating boss. Just because the value of doing damage to and weakening a target is usually better than suppressing, because you can kill a target faster if you weaken them. But I'm on Hunter, so I have a smoke bomb, so I can weaken targets with my smoke, and I have volatile explosions going off everywhere, which is basically like little miniature grenades. So do I really need, on top of all the volatile explosions all over the place, do I really need a vortex grenade? I don't really think so. Just for the play style of Gyrfalcons, especially if you're using like a machine gun like I am here, and a really good exotic, you're doing enough area of effect, add clear type damage that you don't need to go crazy with your grenade and penalize your stats too much. With that said, that's just something I would do normally, whether I was using collective obligation or not. But then when I started using collective obligation, I realized, oh, this weapon actually likes it when you do all of the void debuffs. So I have the capability of doing all the void debuffs: volatile, suppressed, weaken. So if I really want to charge up collective obligation, I will get my volatile rounds going, which is easy, just by coming out of invis, whether it's dodging into an invis, getting a finisher, whatever. Stylish Executioner procs every time I kill something that's been debuffed by void. So volatile rounds are going non-stop. and then I really want to charge it, throw my suppressor grenades at the target, throw my smoke bomb, and then I'll have 3 circles lit up, and then I can hold square in my case on a PS5 controller to charge. See, it says Void Leech active, right, and it's on a timer. So if you pay attention to the buffs, you'll see what it'll say: Void Leech charge, and then when I activate it, it'll say active, and it'll be on a timer. And then you've got like 10, 11 seconds or something like that to use it in Void Leech mode. And what that does is it outputs all the void debuffs that it basically took in, right? So it's like an input and an output. You shoot a volatile target, you've input volatile rounds into collective obligation. You shoot a weakened target, you've input weakened. You shoot a suppressed target, you've input suppressed. So 3 circles lit up, you've got all those void debuffs input into the weapon, then you activate the Void Leech, and then you're outputting all 3 of those debuffs at the same time. So it's pretty cool, like especially taking out champions, and look at the range. So I mean, it's just a good pulse rifle in general, but when you add all the void debuffs on top of it, it's even better. And surprisingly, like, I would never use a pulse for ad clear, but except for maybe Graviton Lance, or yeah, I always get confused between that and the helmet Graviton forfeit. But collective obligation is really good at ad clear on Gyrfalcons, because not just because it has volatile rounds and you can just kind of go around in circles and hip fire and get volatile explosions going up, but if you activate the Void Leech just to clear ads, it works really well as well. Especially in the boss room here, where you've got gladiators and dogs. The gladiators are obviously the biggest threat because they'll come and one swipe you with their cleavers. But if you can't kill a gladiator right away, your next best thing is to disable them. So you can do that by either using a blinding grenade, or you can suppress them. Right, that's what suppressor grenades are for, really. So they worked really well in the Witch Queen campaign missions when you're up against light bearers, because the light bearers can pop their super, and you could disable their super just by suppressing them. Like, if you throw a suppressor grenade at yourself, you'll notice all your abilities are down for a few seconds. Like, you can't use anything. Can't use your super, can't use your grenade, your melee, your class, nothing. So basically that's what you're doing to light bearers when you suppress them. It's what you're doing to gladiators. They're moving all slow. They can't attack you, right? You basically stun them. And it works extremely similar with a blinding grenade too. But yeah, no, it worked really well for that. So hopefully that kind of explains how it works. And after doing this Nightfall a few times and failing, because this is actually the first time I've done this Nightfall, or at least tried to solo it. So I definitely wasn't going to attempt Grandmaster, and as you may have seen from my channel, I do Legend and Master content. I'm not quite comfortable on Grandmasters yet, and I don't think most of the people watching my videos aren't comfortable soloing Grandmasters either, and they're not really interested, frankly, because there's no incentive. There's also no incentive to solo it on Legend or Master. But if you are interested in starting to solo stuff, or you just like watching people do it, Legend and Master is a bit more attainable. Doing it on level, or if you're over level, it's just a better atmosphere for learning the mission, because I would say a good majority of your capability to solo flawless stuff, whether it's weekly Witch Queen campaign missions, Nightfalls, dungeons, exotic missions, whatever. It's your knowledge of the mission itself. Skill is like a secondary factor. Obviously, you got to be skilled enough to not miss all your shots, and you got to be quick to make decisions and not make dumb plays. But generally speaking, knowing the mission is going to give you the most advantage possible. Because if you don't know the mission, then you're gonna die from things that you had no idea could kill you. Like, you didn't know there was a spawn of enemies that spawned at that time in that location when you did this certain thing, right? So just doing them over and over again and failing at them, that's how you really learn the mission. And then doing it without dying is going to be a lot easier, and you're going to do it more efficiently as well. So it's a good experience, even though, like, I'm not a huge fan of this Nightfall in particular. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just Nessus. Maybe it's just kind of dark, and it's not like a really pretty Nightfall or anything. Like the Witch Queen missions, I find are very, like, artistically, they're just beautiful. Like the architecture on, like, everything's like Gothic architecture, and that's what I do in real life. I work on Gothic stone architecture and all kinds of stuff like that. So to me, I like seeing that in the game. It's appealing. Same for like Light Blade. Even Glassway is a very pretty mission. But this one's just kind of dark, so I like it. It doesn't interest me as much, but I do want to be able to do these Nightfalls, so that's why I chose to do it and share my experience. And I'm glad I did it in the end, because after each time I failed, like I failed when the boss had like 5 HP left, or like 5% of his health bar, and I got the solar grenades. Like, the Cabal just were spamming me with their solar blasts and their solar grenades, and I died. So at that point, I was basically determined to, like, go back in, because I knew I had it. I knew I could do it. So and then I finally did it, and it feels good to do it, because then when I go to do this in the future, it's going to be easier to do whether I'm solo or in a team. If I'm in a team, then people can rely on me to stay alive, and they can rely on me to understand how the mission works. So, and then as far as the other weapons I'm using, I've got my commemoration crafted. That was my first thing on my crafting to-do list to craft from Deepstone Crypt, because I didn't have a good void machine gun before this season, and I do like machine guns. So, and then the fact that we got this Gyrfalcon's Hauberk update with volatile rounds at the beginning of the season was just kind of a bonus added on to that. Even Retrofit Escapade is really good. So, like, I didn't have one before this season, but now I've got 2 really good machine guns. And then I ended up crafting it with Killing Tally, Enhanced Killing Tally, and Reconstruction. I feel like Reconstruction is a must on it, especially if you're going to do Killing Tally, because you basically have 150 rounds in the mag, and if you manage your shots properly, you never have to reload, which means that you can keep the uptime on Killing Tally. I think it maxes out at times 3, but you can keep that Killing Tally times 3 for as long as you got ammo. Like, you never have to reload with Reconstruction. It's crazy. And then killing tally times 3 does, I can't remember exactly how much more damage, but like 30% or something like that. So basically the strategy is kill 3 ads and then you can shoot your beefy target. It doesn't work good on champs. Because the problem with the champs is, you know, unless their health is low enough, they're gonna, like, a barrier is gonna put its shield up, an overload's gonna come out of its stun, so you need to switch to your weapons that are gonna deal with stunning them, right? And that's gonna erase your stacks of killing tally. So I wouldn't even recommend bothering with trying to do anything fancy with your machine gun on champions. Personally, I just learned after a couple runs with commemoration just not even to waste ammo, especially because famine is the modifier this week, so the ammo drops are really pretty bad. And I think in the end, like, I finished the boss off with like 1 brick sitting on the floor, and I ran out of ammo completely. And I managed my ammo pretty well throughout this whole mission. Like, I used all the bricks that I had that dropped, and you can see, like, I barely even used it. Yeah, I just figured killing tallies, even though, you know, it's mostly for ad clear, you do kind of suffer when you're using a machine gun on boss damage. So, and you don't have the ammo because, like, you can't just spam all your ammo on a boss and then do less than par damage. Then you've just wasted your, you know, the purpose of the machine gun. So at least if you have a perk on it that gives it a pretty good damage buff, then you can kind of justify burning through a bit of ammo on a boss. And because what else are you gonna do? Other than that, you have to rely on your super, you know, or if you're using Arbalist or like a really good sniper, I guess. But snipers aren't really that good right now. But yeah, you could use Arbalist and do some crit damage with that. But mainly, I was gonna rely on my super for like every plate here in the boss fight, and for damaging the boss. I wasn't just gonna burn through all my machine gun on the boss. There wasn't enough ammo. So yeah, and then it actually took me quite a while to learn how this boss room worked as well. So at the start, you got to go to the middle plate, and once you've activated it, the ads will start coming out. You kill the ads, and then the boss comes out, and you've got to damage him to about 30 to 40% or so until he goes immune, and then you've got to capture all 3 plates. And you don't save progress while you're on the plate, so you either have to commit or you have to abandon your progress. But the trick to doing it is figuring out when the best time to capture is, and in which order, because the ads keep spawning at certain points. So like, if you completely kill all the ads, then another wave of ads is going to come out, which includes gladiators, dogs, and all that. So you don't want to start capturing the plate until you've basically killed the dogs and the gladiators, and then you leave a couple ads up, and then you go and capture the plate, and then you basically just get ready for a wave of dogs and gladiators on the next wave of ads that spawn, depending on your timing. Like, I think on this plate here, my timing was really good. I didn't get a wave, like I didn't get an aggressive wave of gladiators. Like, there's the gladiators now, but I'm already done capturing the plate. Personally, I went right, left, middle. And but there's no set order to it. You can go in any order you want. And I was also trying to farm up my super before capturing each plate. And it was actually pretty easy to farm up supers with that fragment. Using that fragment that gives you super energy when you kill enemies while surrounded. So it actually charges your super up pretty fast. Like, it's almost as good as like ashes to assets on a like a touch of thunder storm titan build, or vortex void walker. Like, you can get it if you surround yourself. You can get your super built up pretty fast. Prior to this video, I never used that fragment because my Gyrfalcon's Hauberk stats were pretty poor, and I wanted at least a couple tier 10 stats. So I was kind of sacrificing. I was basically utilizing some of the fragments that I wouldn't have used optimally, like Echo of Leaching for that plus 10 resilience. But like, you never use your charged melee to get kills as a hunter, so it was like I was purely using it for plus 10 resilience. But I finally got a better roll on Gyrfalcons, and so I was able to give up that fragment and go for something useful. And then, other than that, as far as the Gyrfalcon's build that I go with, I've been, ever since the start of the season, I've basically, I think I messed around with it for a few days, a couple playthroughs on Nightfalls or whatever, and I just kind of came to my own conclusion of what worked best for me, and what was the most fun, and that was for me to use Devour, obviously, and then combine that with High Energy Fire and Font of Might. So basically, I produce orbs with my void weapons from Harmonic Siphon on my helmet. Then I pick up the orb to get charged with light, which gives me High Energy Fire. But at the same time that I pick up the orb, I'm getting Devour from the fragment, Echo of Starvation, I think it is. So it gives you like 5-6 seconds of Devour, which isn't great, but once you get the chain started, then you can keep the uptime on it. And then the Taking Charge mod also lets you pick up orbs even if your super's full. So that's huge, because that's kind of like a major flaw with the charge of lights, or the being able to pick up orbs of power. Like, you can't do it unless your super is not full, which is kind of silly. But Taking Charge is a workaround. You might have to have a High Energy Fire at the same time. Like, there might have to be a use for you for your charge with light. And then outside of that, I'm using Elemental Armaments with Font of Might. So basically, my Void weapons are making orbs, and they're making Void Wells. And they basically make them at the same time. Like, every couple of kills, there's going to be an orb and a well. They're not always synchronized to be exactly the same time, but they're usually around the same time. And anytime I need to go in and clean up loot and ammo and whatever from ads I just killed, there's almost always going to be an orb of power and a void well sitting there. And yes, it would be easier to just use void wells to get High Energy Fire with Elemental Charge, because then I could do you could save on mods. Like, if my only goal was to get High Energy Fire and Font of Might, then I would just use Elemental Armaments or another Void Well producing mod with Elemental Charge. You don't need orbs, but I do need orbs because I'm using Devour. Right. And then, so that takes up 4 of my combat mods. Taking Charge, High Energy Fire, Elemental Armaments, Font of Might. And then my 5th combat mod is Powerful Friends, just because I want the quick uptime on my dodge. Because my mobility at tier 10, like the Hunter jump, is so much better on tier 10 that I find it hard to play without it. Like, I'll go down to tier 8 if I need to. But I really like having tier 10 mobility. And then the quick dodge, like, that just lets me reload my weapons faster and, you know, go invis if I need to. So that's basically it. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like, sub, comment. I'll see you in the next one.
Those are questions for another day, I suppose.